What if the truth in Beyond the Gates isn't hidden, but strategically leaked, piece by the very people we think are trying to expose it? That's the thought I couldn't shake. Not after Dani spoke up. Not after Kat revealed just enough. Not after Hayley started reacting a little too fast, a little too precisely. Something here isn't just unfolding, it's being managed. And the more I think about it, the less this feels like a mystery and more like a controlled detonation. Let me walk you through this, because on the surface, it looks simple, but it's not. The situation clean, sharp, and dangerous. Here's what we think we know. Dani is the only person who saw Lynette meet Hayley. That alone makes her valuable. But more importantly, it makes her vulnerable. She told Thomas, and if Thomas knows, there's a strong chance Bill knows too. Information like that doesn't just sit still, it spreads quietly, quickly. Then it reaches Hayley, and suddenly Dani isn't just a witness anymore. She's a liability. Now add Kat into the mix. Kat is the one who starts revealing the truth, but not all at once. That's important. She releases information in fragments, controlled bursts, enough to move the story forward, but never enough to fully expose it. That's not accidental. That's strategy. And hovering above all of this, Lia, the silent force, the one who doesn't need to say much to feel dangerous, the one who might already be thinking, who needs to disappear next? So now we have 3 pressure points. Dani, the witness, Kat, the controlled truth teller, Hayley, the one with something to hide, Lia, the one who ensures silence, and at the center of it all, Lynette, or what's left of her story, Dani, the truth holder who became a target. Let's start with Dani, because her position is the most brutally simple and the most dangerous. She saw something she wasn't supposed to see. That's it. That's enough. And in stories like this, being the only one who knows isn't power. It's a countdown clock. Now here's where it gets interesting. Dani doesn't just know something, she shares it. She tells Thomas that decision matters, because the moment she speaks, the truth leaves her control. And that's the first mistake. Or maybe not a mistake, maybe just human. Because what would you do? You see something suspicious, something that doesn't line up. You tell someone you trust. That's normal. That's rational. But in this world, that's dangerous, because information doesn't travel in straight lines. It leaks sideways. And once Hayley hears about it, the dynamic shifts immediately. Dani is no longer invisible. She's exposed. And then comes the threat. Not necessarily direct at first, but implied. Pressure, fear, a choice. Speak and risk everything, or stay silent and survive. This is where the show does something really smart. It doesn't just turn Dani into a victim, it turns her into a moral battleground. Because her decision now defines not just her survival, but the direction of the entire narrative. If she talks, the truth accelerates. If she stays quiet, the truth suffocates. But here's the twist I keep coming back to. What if Dani doesn't get to choose at all? What if the choice is taken from her? Kidnapping, framing her as a liar, discrediting her before she can even speak. These aren't just threats, they're logical moves, efficiently. And Hayley, she has every reason to make that move, because Dani isn't just a witness. She's a bridge between Lynette and Hayley. And if that bridge holds, everything collapses. Hayley, defensive, or preemptive. Let's talk about Hayley, because her reaction is where things start to feel too precise. The moment information reaches her, she acts. Fast. That's not panic. That's awareness. Because think about it, how does she know the threat level so quickly? How does she immediately understand what Dani represents? Unless she already knew what was at stake. And this is where the timeline becomes critical. If Dani can prove that Hayley and Lynette had a prior connection, one that existed before what everyone else believes, then the entire narrative shifts. Suddenly, this isn't coincidence. It's premeditation. And that's a problem, a big one. So what does Hayley do? She applies pressure. She forces Dani into a corner, not necessarily with violence right away, but with fear, with implication, with the understanding that speaking up has consequences. And here's what I find fascinating. Hayley doesn't need to eliminate Dani immediately. She just needs to control her, control the narrative, control the timing, control what version of the truth gets out, if any. Because in a situation like this, silence is just as powerful as elimination. Maybe even more. Cat, truth, or performance. Now let's get into Cat, because this is where things get complicated. At first glance, Cat looks like the whistleblower, the one who steps in and starts revealing what's really going on. But look closer. She doesn't reveal everything. She reveals enough. And that's a huge difference. Because partial truth isn't honesty, it's strategy. So the question becomes, is Kat trying to expose the truth, or is she trying to control it? Because the way she operates suggests the latter. She releases information in stages, carefully, almost like she's testing reactions, watching how people respond before deciding what to reveal next. That's not panic. That's calculation. But here's the problem with playing that game. You become dangerous to everyone. To Lia, because you're digging too deep. To Hayley, because you're getting too close. And even to Dani, because your timing might put her at risk. Kat isn't just uncovering the truth. She's positioning herself within it. And that's why she's in danger. Not just because of what she knows, but because of how she's choosing to use it. Lia, the silent threat. Lia doesn't need screen time to feel powerful, you know? She operates in the background, but her presence is everywhere. Because if there's one character who understands the value of silence, it's her. And when someone like Kat starts investigating Lynette's disappearance, that's a problem. A problem that needs to be handled quietly, efficiently, permanently, if necessary. So the idea that Lia might order someone to silence Kat, that doesn't feel extreme. It feels logical. Because in a world where information is power, uncontrolled information is chaos. And Lia doesn't allow chaos. But here's where it gets even more interesting. What if Lia isn't just reacting? What if she's been anticipating this all along? What if Kat's investigation, Dani's knowledge, even Hayley's behavior are all pieces of a bigger system that Lia already understands? Because if that's true, then this isn't a scramble to contain the truth. It's a controlled effort to shape how the truth emerges. The core conflict, truth versus survival. At the heart of all this, there's a simple but brutal question. Is the truth worth dying for? Dani has to answer it. Kat has to answer it. Even Hayley, in her own way, has already answered it. And the answers aren't clean. Because this isn't a world where truth automatically wins. Sometimes truth gets buried, silenced, rewritten. And the people who hold it, they don't become heroes. They become targets. The uncomfortable logic. Now, let me say something that might feel a little unsettling. Everything happening right now makes sense. Not morally, but logically. Hayley silencing Dani. Logical. Lia eliminating Kat as a threat. Logical. Kat controlling the flow of information. Logical. Dani being forced into silence. Logical. That's what makes this story so compelling. There are no random actions here. Every move has purpose. Every decision has consequence. And that's why the tension feels real. Because you can see the reasoning behind even the most dangerous choices. The twist nobody is talking about. Here's the angle I think changes everything. What if Lynette's disappearance isn't the mystery anymore? What if the real story is about who controls the narrative of her disappearance? Because look at what's happening. Dani holds a piece of the truth. Kat distributes pieces of the truth. Hayley suppresses pieces of the truth. Lia potentially erases pieces of the truth. This isn't just a mystery. It's a war over information. And in that war, the truth itself becomes fragmented, distorted, weaponized. So maybe the question isn't what happened to Lynette. Maybe it's whose version of Lynette's story will survive. And that's where I land on all of this, not with a clear answer, but with a realization. And beyond the gates, truth doesn't move freely. It's pushed, held, controlled, and sometimes completely erased. So when Dani decides whether to speak, when Kat decides what to reveal, when Hayley decides who to silence, they're not just shaping the outcome. They're deciding whether the truth ever had a chance to exist in the first place. And that's the real danger. Not that the truth is hidden, but that it might be rewritten before anyone can prove it was real.